Hi, thanks so much for tuning in to Mom Boss Chronicles. My name is Jen.
This is Sue.
And this is Danielle.
We are three moms that work together in real estate and are good friends, and here to talk to you about fun topics, the good, the bad, the ugly, of mom struggles, real estate, and other fun stuff. So make sure to subscribe to listen to more.
Okay, today we have a special guest, my brother, Alex Levine. He is bassist of the Gaslight Anthem. He's a business owner, a barber, has a barber shop. What else?
Girl dad.
True Renaissance man
Yes.
here. Hi, Alex.
Hi. That was the nicest I think I've ever heard my sister talk about me.
We paid her to say that.
I mean, I don't think he's really cool. Some people do. So we've permanently replaced Jen with my brother.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yes.
Jen's on vacation, so we are doing this without her today. We have some questions from her that we'll pick your brain with.
Mm-hmm. We figured we needed to get you in the studio before we lose you to touring and life and, all that. So we appreciate so much you taking the time to be here with us today.
Of course.
Allowing us to ask a bunch of questions,
To learn all about
you. Right. So obviously our podcast is Mom Boss Chronicles, but you're a dad boss, and I think probably at the core, you're a dad and you're a girl dad. So I think there's probably a ton you can share with us about maybe your philosophy on being a girl dad and, how you're raising them to be strong women eventually.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope, right?
Those poor girls, I'm going to have to sneak them out of their room for a date when they're teenagers.
Yeah, having two beautiful little girls is tough for sure. But yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of I guess just tough times figuring out a balance between that, especially when they were younger. I feel like I'm getting better at that you'd have to ask my wife if that's true or not. But yeah, I try to really concentrate on the time that I am with my family, my girls, that I really am not working as much as I should be. Because when you are a business owner or a person that has a lot of ideas, there's always something to do, so I realized that if I'm always pushing to that next thing, I'm never focusing on what's in front of me. So I've been a bit more conscious of that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's hard. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, just the work-life balance.
Right.
And
staying present.
Yeah, and unplugging when you're at home. But so you mentioned being someone who has a lot of ideas, which if you know Alex, he always has a new idea and a new way, not necessarily a new business, but, something he wants to do next. And he's generally successful in what he does. So, I mean, he's been, playing bass for the Gaslight Anthem since you're 20?
20, yeah. We started the band when I was 19, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we started it in my parents' basement. Yeah, in 2016 or 6. Sorry,
2006, yeah.
Long time ago. Yeah, and with that, obviously, I didn't go to college, so I was putting all of my eggs. Now looking back at it, I was putting all my eggs, obviously, in a basket that is not very financially stable. It ended up working out for me, but a good portion of the first few years were really tough. Living on the road, living in a van, sleeping in a van. Not making any money, going into credit card debt.
Was there any other time, or are there times where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Or did you just really, you had a belief?
Yeah, people, Dan would remember, there was something about this band that when we first started and nobody knew who we were, there was something, they call it that, an it factor. There was something that was driving the band. It didn't feel like something that wasn't going to be taken seriously, and it felt like something special. So for me, I was for me, I was the youngest in the band, so I had a little bit more time to kind of figure out what I was going to do. But I think collectively, the biggest thing with the success of the band, especially early on, was the four of us had the same goal, and I think that's the hardest part with musicians. a lot of the time you get guys that all they want to do is that, but they actually don't want to do the insane work that you have to do to get to that point. And then maybe there is one guy in the band that does, and then another guy has a girlfriend and she doesn't want him to, you know, there's a million things, right? So we were lucky enough to be all in a unique position to do that. So yeah, I think, you know, with that also came with a lot of different struggles, you know, in the beginning, especially not having any money. And then all of a sudden we went from not having any money, credit card debt, all of these, being homeless more or less. And then we had a little bit of money. And growing up, I didn't have any money, you know, neither did my sister, obviously. So yeah, we grew up pretty broke, you know. And as I got older, I started realizing that those cliche sayings, you know, the rich stay rich, and, you know, all these things that people say are true to a point. And they are true to a point because it is by far, it's definitely a mindset, right? So when I made a little bit of money, I was terrified because I had no idea what to do with it, right? So when you make a little bit of money and you don't know what to do with it and you've never had money, you start spending money, right? Not realizing that that little bit of money in the right circumstances can compound, and that could be, you know, your nest egg or whatever it may be. But for me, I started, you know, throwing a lot of things at the wall and trying to like maintain it without really understanding how money really worked, how risk worked, how you could use your money and influence sometimes to bring in other people to lessen the load of whatever project you're doing. So yeah, so over, you know, I had a lot of growing pains over the first like 15 years or so in my career, just figuring out, you know, what I'm really doing right, what I'm not doing right. And yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, but as I made those mistakes, I understood that whatever was coming next, I'll be able to deal with at that point, because I truly did learn from, you know, what I was doing. That being said, I invested, you know, heavily into like a sandwich franchise, and, you know, there was a lot of bad things that kind of, we can't talk about the actual name legally. I actually just remember that. Okay. So yeah, I invested into that. A lot of unforeseen things happened at that time. I was way too in over my head with the risk, and it wiped me out more or less. So I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out what was next. I realized that the only way I know that I can truly be successful is to really invest and to start certain projects that I know I'm good at, right? And I know I'm passionate about, along with understanding that, you know, nobody could really take on 100% of something you don't understand, right? So finding really good, smart partners that counterbalance what you're not good at or what you don't like doing, right? Like, I'm not a logistics person. I'm all over the place. For example, I was just on a conference call, scheduled that and this at the same time. I was like, yeah, that works. I was like, right. I totally forgot.
Yeah.
We'll hire you an admin. Okay.
I was like, I'm not leaving your side because you're not going to get off the phone.
But right. So, you know, hiring or working with certain partners has definitely helped me with that. And that helps big time with the work-life balance with kids, and being able to, and having partners that understand that, like, hey, I'm not by the phone for 3 hours. I'm not texting you back.
Right.
You know, I need to be with my kids, because at the end of the day, what's the point, right? Besides, certain people just want, you know, just are narcissists, and they just like to, you know, be a part of things. And I think that's always the biggest sham, I think, that a lot of people tell themselves when they say they're working for their family or towards something, you know, and it's all BS, because you look at it and you're like, listen, man, you're just running away from, you know, real life. You're running away from the responsibility that you have to be a good father, you know, or mother or whatnot. And yeah, I think it's super important to really obviously stop and smell the roses, as they say, right?
Well, that's a really good take on it, to like you saying, I never really thought about it like that, but people are like, I work really hard, I'm grinding for my family, but you're right.
Yeah.
They're not showing up
Right.
for their family and spending that quality time. And like you said, even if it's like 3 hours that your phone is not near you and you're giving them that quality attention, I mean, that goes so far.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's always something else. Like
and we can always be
never
busy doing
stops.
something,
Right.
especially if you're creative, like you are, and you're constantly thinking of new things.
There's a million things, right? Like I'll catch myself. So with my barbershop, yesterday we were.
Don't look at my split ends, okay?
Same.
Was it yesterday we went peach picking, right? And we're driving. My wife's driving, and I'm sitting there like putting a custom barber cape together with my logo. And I was getting mad because I couldn't find the right logo, whatever. And as we're getting out of the car, I'm still doing it, and they're running ahead. I'm like, what am I doing? It's Sunday.
Right.
Like, stop. And I daily I have to like tell myself like, stop.
But that's good that you do that and you're self-aware enough to do that. I mean, do you feel like, was there something that set you off to help you be more present and self-aware like that, or something you read, or just a kind of an amalgamation of things?
Yeah. I went through a lot of stuff personally. Yeah, that kind of set that off. You kind of, when you go through some hard stuff like that, you have to self-evaluate and find out like what your have accountability in your actions, right? And
realize what's important.
Right, exactly. And then once you do that, hopefully you could start to maintain. And these things don't happen overnight, right? And exactly. And for my family, my wife, she knows that. She knows who I am, what I need to do, but she also knows that like I'm working towards figuring out like a better balance. But it's funny, there's so many of these like internet, I don't even know what you want to call them anymore, like entrepreneur, like influencers or whatever, they're all like trying to sell these like programs to like help you be a better version of yourself. And every time I look these guys up, 1, 2, 3 marriages. You're like, dude, get out of here. What are
they're good sales people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, growing as a person and getting better comes out of something that bad that happened. And actually, I was listening to a podcast the other day with Joe Dispenza, who I love, like really, mindset, manifesting and all that stuff. But he basically said that same thing. Like, it really takes a hard situation for you to then pivot, I guess, and look at things through a different lens.
Exactly.
So you started basically as a kid with the band, and now you guys kind of took a little hiatus for what, like
a few years.
Yeah, it was a while, and now you guys are back at it. So how is it? It must be so different now. You're an adult. With kids and
I think the good thing is collectively the 4 of us we're all married with children, so there's just a different way that we go about scheduling tours and whatnot. We're not out on the road like 8 weeks at a time anymore, but it's still a grind, being away for a month at a time from your kids, especially when they're young. But it is nice to like kind of go through it with other guys that we're doing the same exact thing. But with a band too, it's people always like to like stand on their soapbox and just rip musicians apart and quote unquote like rock stars, like they're all junkies and they're all alcoholics and they all are with groupies or whatever it may be, or they all break up and they always fight, and you're like, I always, obviously play devil's advocate there. I'm like, okay, so let's go down the list. If I threw you on a tour bus and you were going from city to city away from your family, and they were giving you free alcohol every single day, and you had friends in all of these cities, and their big night was coming out to see you play, you're not going to have a drink. You're not going to, do these certain things, and it's a perpetual like weekend, right? That's like what you're creating, a party basically, right? So you have that aspect of it. Then you have this aspect of being in a work environment, because that is what it is at the end of the day. Like it's a job, right? And The difference is that we are traveling. We're a traveling circus, basically. So, but if you ask anybody, how many people love every single person that they work with day in and day out, right? So say you do love every single person, which, we do. We we're basically brothers, right? So imagine if you worked with 4 people you love, but not also worked with them. You lived with them. You ate dinner with them. You had to also own the business with them. So you have to make business decisions. Then you have to go perform and do the thing with them day in and day out, over and over, year after year. If you're not going to have some sort of, creative differences, that's just not the case. Even in my barbershop, I see it with some of the guys, like they'll work for 3 hours and they've got to get out of there for lunch because they just need to not be around people, So yeah, it's, and also, creative people are kind of crazy too. So, you have like a lot of like social anxiety and stuff like that. Like, I think with many creative people, it just goes hand in hand with it,
My observations of creatives definitely is that.
Yeah. I always say it's
a beautiful mind. Like because they're creating in their brains at all times, and there's always something going on, and you're conjuring something out of nothing. Right. But I guess on the flip side,
it takes like it takes all of the brain power, because most of the time you'll see some people that are very creative and they can't like make a bologna sandwich, or I like physically can't like pick up my clothes or like do the laundry.
Is that the excuse you tell your wife?
Well,
creative for this. Leave me alone.
I'm a creative muse. I can't throw my pants in the laundry.
When you're, just asking as like no one that will ever be on a stage with thousands of people, like what does that feel like? And do you get nervous every show, or Yeah.
So years ago, somebody was very notable that's pretty close to the band. He said to us once, because we were really nervous right before we were going to go out and we were playing with him. He was like, listen, he's like, if you are not nervous, you have to stop doing this. He's like, because you don't care. He's like, if you're not nervous, you don't care, right? Usually like butterflies is when you're feeling anticipation, you're kind of like going through a dialogue in your head, and if you're not, you probably just don't care enough, right? So I can speak for myself. I'm always nervous, and you go through like a lot of rituals. Like I've got like crazy OCD, so I go through like the same rituals every single time before you play, and like I have weird things with like my picks. If I pick up a pick and it doesn't feel the way it needs to feel, I throw it down. Like there's all these like weird things
That's
that
fair,
you have. But you those are the things that I guess like kind of make a barrier between you and the crowd, and to allow it, because you have to, and you learn over the years that you can't take these things personal, right? Like there's going to be people out there heckling, or on the other side, like people like hitting on you or whatever it is, and it's work, and you've got to you just look above and just do your thing,
Right.
But
yeah, I think you guys, from what I saw over the years, it was so different from what people thought. Like you said, they're doing drugs and they're sleeping with women and this and that. And it just wasn't like, as far as at least I know, everyone is like always faithful and this and that. And like, of course, everyone had their fun when, we were all younger. Yeah. It was always a party, but it just wasn't like that.
Yeah. It's not like
at all
like a Molly Crew book.
Yeah. Right.
And, I've seen it, but usually that doesn't last, there's it's very hard to maintain that kind of, and also I think it's a different time. It's not, the 1980s or late 70s. It was just,
well, you can't get away with
really
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Everything's recorded
all
these
over
days.
social media. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That aside, but I think like your bandmates and you all have your family, you have small kids, you're on the same page. So like, you have a family. At the end of the day, that's your why, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that you guys are all connected on that.
Yeah.
Like so real quick, going back, you have your own barber shop. When did you start cutting hair? How did you get into that?
Yeah, so I started cutting hair. It was something that I couldn't even tell you. Actually, you know what, I could. I got a really bad haircut when I was probably like 13 or 14. And I remember saying to myself, I was like, I'm going to just try doing this myself. And I gave myself like a better haircut than they did. And then from then on, I just like started cutting my friends in high school and whatever. And I loved it. And I just always kind of kept up with it. And then when we took a hiatus, I decided to like properly get my license and then go full on. And through that, at that point, I decided that, you know, when we were on tour, you would go and do these big music festivals. And usually like there's different ways of touring, right? There's like, you have your headlining tours or you have your festival circuits. So like usually summertime, especially in Europe, you would go and you would do like a month, just every single day you do festivals, right? Yeah. And you're in the middle of nowhere in like Austria or something, you know, on like Sunday. And I remember it hit me, and I'm really weird about my hair. Like I need
you have great hair, so I would be weird about it.
Thank you. Oh my God. But I feel like I always, you know, I need a haircut like consistently. So, so we were somewhere in Europe, and I was much tormented. Was trying to find it, and I remember it wasn't as accessible now with like, I mean, Google was still there, but it wasn't like now there's an app for everything. Yeah. You could probably find anything anywhere. And I'm trying to find a barber shop. There's no barber shops around. We're like half hour outside of town. And I look around, and backstage there's usually like these containers or like a big tent. That's where all the dressing rooms are. And then there's like a tent for catering, and usually whoever the big sponsor is, the beer sponsor, or Red Bull, it's always Red Bull. There's like a Red Bull tent, like Red Bull and vodka, like complimentary. And that's really about it. So, and sometimes you would see like a masseuse, like every once in a while, which that was like a special thing. I was like, why isn't there a barber? Like there should be a barber shop back here. Like there's, let alone the bands, like they've got to get on stage and do that, and they're on the road. The crew guys, the guys that work for the production companies, there's thousands of people, right? So I was like, this seems like something that would make sense. I started working on the concept, and at the same time, my now business partner, he was actually working on the same concept, which is funny. And I go back, and in the history of like really interesting, great things and concepts and businesses that usually happen around the same time period. Like if it was, I think, what was that show? I think I was telling you about that, the history show with like how America was made. If you go back and watch that show, every single concept, for whatever reason, it was happening somewhere else in the country. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. So point being, that was kind of happening, and we ended up meeting, brought it together, and the concept was to have pop-up barbershops backstage at music events, and then that turned into being on-demand barbers for like the NHL, for Major League Baseball.
I saw a couple of I guess baseball players and hockey players. You did, that's so cool.
Yeah. So we do that. Then we'll do like their events, their all-star games, all of that. And then and we're working on the program to actually have an app development to basically have a, not like an Uber, but kind of like a concept like that. Cool. But for high-end celebrity type people that are traveling all the time, you know, to place high-end barbers with them. So with that, our goal was to kind of get into like the production side, and we're working on doing our own festival. My company's called Idle Hand, the main Idle Hand Collective, and then we're in the process of doing our own music festival, Idle Hand Fest, Iron and Strings Fest as well, which is a golf and music festival we're doing out in Scottsdale.
Cool.
Yeah, we're doing that.
That's awesome. I didn't know. Yeah, can we go?
Well, that's what I was just on the phone, and we're doing that.
Mom bosses need to be there.
Yeah. January we'll be out there. So
perfect timing. It's cold here.
So so that, and then you know, and then also the main goal is to really figure out a cool concept for a barbershop. And so we did that. We opened the one in Bradley Beach. It's been open for a few months, and the concept is higher end barbershop that's still affordable with clothing aspects. So we have a retail store as well in the back.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
cool.
a lot of vintage clothes, a lot of new clothes, board shorts, stuff like that. And then we are in the process of building a stage all the way in the back. So it's over 2,000 square feet. So my goal was to, I don't know if you ever went to like Vintage Vinyl. It was a big spot up in Fords, New Jersey. And when my band was younger, it was our like dream, you know, when we put a record out to like have a record release there. So like that was when you like made it, you know, in our heads. We're like, whoa, we have an in-store at Vintage Vinyl. But it was cool. It was like you went there, they had a little stage, you played a few songs, you sat at a table, signed the record for whoever wanted it, and that was that. So that was my goal, where we have the barbershop in the front. We close it off with barn doors, and then in the back we have the stage, and we also have like records and more clothes for sale in the back. And then working with like the Stone Pony or Starling Ballroom during the days of a lot of shows, we'll bring in artists to do Q&As or acoustic sets or whatever it may be, and then sign records and do some cool stuff.
I love that.
So,
that's super cool.
So yeah, that part of that business is coming in the next few months. So yeah.
Well, you're not busy at all, clearly. How has business been?
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's on Main Street, right? In Bradley Beach?
906 Main Street. Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. We're running a promotion right now for back to school. So every kid K through 8 that gets a cut will get like a whole back to school package.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Notebooks and, you know, those little, what are those called? Those little like
a pencil case?
Yeah, pencil caddy thingy, whatever. I don't know. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So yeah,
That's really nice.
come by.
So the barber shop, I think I mentioned this on one of our episodes too. He purchased a commercial building with his partner, business partner, and the building is the barbershop, and they have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment on top of the barbershop that they rent out. So that's, you know, just circling back to real estate.
Yeah, of course.
That's, I mean, what a great way. Instead of renting
absolutely.
commercial space and spending all that money to renovate someone else's property, he, you know, built equity within his own 4 walls and is now also has a rental property. I mean, that's amazing. So
you're making better investment decisions.
Right.
yes,
Exactly.
investing in what you know too. Is,
Exactly.
and he actually found the building and sent it to me.
Yeah.
He bought it
Really?
through me. I didn't even like really know. He would like mention every now and then, like, you know, I want to open a barbershop if you ever see something. But like, I didn't think he was like ready to do it really. And did not think he was going to buy it at this time. Like, I just didn't think he was there yet. But yeah, he found it himself.
You want to be a real estate agent too? I mean, why not?
But he
add
saw
another
it, and I was like, "You have to buy this.
Yeah.
Like, this is." I feel like I definitely pushed you to that
It
direction.
wasn't a barbershop before, was it?
No,
It was like a karate.
Karate.
So it was a blank, like clean slate, blank.
Yeah,
space.
it was a great space, and I liked the idea. It was in Bradley Beach because I feel like Bradley Beach is like the next kind of beach town to kind of pop up, you know. Asbury did its thing, Belmar obviously, so it's right in the middle there. But yeah, my goal and the concept really is, again, with Idle Hand Collective, like the pop-up barbershop side of it. We have over like 2,000 barbers under us.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
wow.
that work for the company and contractor, and we contract them out for the events. So our goal is to, for whoever wants to open up a barbershop or whatnot, concept is to put, you know, idle hand shops all over the country and not franchise it in this way where it's lame, because franchises can be extremely lame, and to give, you know, the barbershops the ability to really have their own thing where they may not have, and then also own a piece of real estate. And for us, it's not about I don't believe in, you know, taking high commissions from barbers. I 100%, I pay about probably 10 to 15% more than any other barbershop commission wise. I don't believe in, getting rich off of somebody else's hard work like that. There's other ways to make money in a barbershop. And I think that the same thing is if, we franchise it out, it's more about like, hey, it's a vehicle for us to accumulate more real estate rather than, taking, 50% of a guy's, haircuts in Florida where, no, absolutely. I don't see the point in that. So, but back to the point of the real estate, I looked at it this way. I had a hair studio in Wall. It's paying like $1,600. It was like $1,600 a month for 100 square feet. I was like, this is insane. Like, what am I doing? I could buy something and I could control my fixed cost by taking it, building it out, being my own landlord rather than, and I've seen it and I know it with plenty of other barbershops, they dump so much money into new real estate for somebody else, and they have a 5 or 7 year clause, which at that point, if you have a 5 or 7, 10, even 10 years, you're taking probably an SBA loan out, and usually they last 7 to 10 years. So by the time you pay that off and you now have an actual fixed cost, they're going to raise the rent on you. So that, along with, I never wanted that. I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do, even a landlord.
For sure.
So that, and then also the biggest problem I see is the fact that barbershops, there's really no ceiling to the money you make, right? So you could keep growing. I wanted a space where I could put as many barbers as I'd like, or I could make a retail space, or I can make an event space, or whatever it may be.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's been pretty awesome.
It's like your dream being realized, and I mean, you said you didn't go to college, and you're coming up with these concepts and smart business decisions like on your own.
Yeah.
I hope you pat yourself on the back. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
The design of the barbershop, I mean, did you kind of sit down with somebody, or did you come up with that yourself?
Yeah, my good friend Dwayne, he is probably the most talented woodworker I've ever met. Yeah. He's unbelievable. New York City, I gotta actually get the name before I say it wrong. I think it's Taylor Wood Designs, I believe.
He made like the cash wrap thing.
Yeah, he made everything.
Really cool.
Really?
Yeah, so it is. Sorry.
All about the woodworking, natural wood. I love it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was at Taylor Wood NYC. So he hand built everything.
Wow.
And we sat down and I was like, yeah, I kind of want like the stations to like feel like old steamer trunks, right? So I had this concept of it being a little bit more of like an old school barbershop, but like a modern feel to it. And he knocked it out of the park. And somehow I realized like last week, I was like, this kind of has like this, organically has like a Miami vibe going on in it, and yeah, it's cool. It's like cool to see.
Miami of the 40s, like an Art Deco. Feel,
exactly. Yeah. It's cool to see when you allow something to breathe without like micromanaging every little thing. And that's where I'm big on that stuff, especially like everybody that works in my shop. I'm like, listen, you're all contractors. I'm not your boss. I own this brand and I just expect, a couple things here. But at the end of the day, if you don't respect it, you don't respect yourself, because nobody's going to come here.
Right.
Which means you're not going to make money.
Right.
Because this is all commission based, right? So if you do that and you pay people well, right? Like, what was that? Richard Bronson, right? What does he say? Train people to leave and pay people to stay, right? So train people people well enough so they can leave, but pay them well enough so they stay.
It's
right?
such a 101 concept.
It's
to me
so
that,
true.
Right.
But
It's
people,
nice to hear you implementing that.
people really have. I see in this industry a lot. People have a really hard time with micromanaging. It's they have to have their finger on
I worked in
every
corporate.
right and. I think that's the thing. Like some people, if they have like a corporate gig at some point and they come in, they own a bar, whatever it may be, you see that feel where it's that same concept of, stepping over dollars to get the pennies, you're like, hey man, why are you focusing on this when like the big picture is right here?
Right.
Just let it be, let it breathe, let it turn into what it should be turned into, not by strangling it because you had an idea and you won't. And it's all like ego based, right?
Oh, for
Egos, narcissism,
Ego kills everything.
It always comes back to it, right?
Especially in like now the hair industry, they have all these like the mini salons, or sola salons, whatever they are.
The salon suites,
Yeah, salon suites. Thank you. So you can rent your own space and just have your clients come in and out. So I feel like you have to create that environment, and you have to pay well for people to want to stay, because also not everyone wants to be a business owner. And most people don't, I think.
Exactly.
So they don't want to have to go to these places. So as long as you're paying them well enough, then I'm sure they're happy to stay.
I think you're right. In this industry especially, a lot of people, it's just about the money. A lot of people don't want the headache, because it is like there's in a barbershop or a salon, there's a big, if you don't do it right, the margins aren't that great, right? So when you're talking about the headaches to what you could actually make, say one person calls out, 2 people need off on a Saturday, and you're like, cool, what am I going to do now, right? But I think if you, like I said, if you pay people well enough, and you figure out and you do things the right way, owning the real estate and being able to control certain aspects of it, figuring out different income streams, that's it. You have to, I pay people well enough where I'm very transparent with the numbers too. I'm like, this is what we're making. This is what barbershop made. Obviously, barbershop's the business. It has to make money, obviously, to make all this, go around. But, this is what you're making if you're fully booked, and it's comparable to if you went off on your own and you had a salon suite. So that was a concept that I had too, because when I was in the suites, all I kept hearing was, oh man, the barbershop and the salon business is going to be dead because everybody's going to do this. I was like, no, they're not. I was like, there's pros and cons to everything. I was like, the con to this is that you have to do everything yourself in 100 square foot space. You have to check people out. You have to clean up. If you're run behind. Also, you're by yourself, which for me,
awful.
For me being a barber, I enjoyed,
the community. I feel like that's a good thing too. It's like, I'm going to the barbershop.
Exactly.
You're going to shoot the shit with people, or it's not just going to get your hair cut. It's an experience.
And I think a lot of barbers that are doing that also forget about that component for people, that they don't want to go to a closet to get their hair cut. They want to go to a barbershop.
And for themselves. I mean, to work 50 hours a week in that environment, that's got to be taxing.
Oh, for the margins, and you're going to do it for the money. So I look at it, I'm like, okay, let's figure out a concept to where you can make that amount of money working for somebody else, and also feeling like you have that control, right? Because if you give people enough control, they will do anything that you need them to do for your business. They're better, they're more appreciative.
Happy employees.
Like a partnership.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're respecting them.
You brought them on for a reason, so trust them to do what they need to do.
Even with, like, a big thing is I don't ever want anybody to feel like they're walking on eggshells with me, or feeling like, hey, if you need a day off, literally just go and book it yourself. You have because a lot of barbershops don't allow the employees to book, to block themselves out, right? So I'm like, you do whatever you need to do. If you're not, like, I can't force you to make money for me when you're not making money yourself. There's a certain point where it's like, hey, you're just not showing up anymore. Like, I need somebody to fill the chair.
Of course.
But when we're talking about just very normal actions in life, like if you need a day off, you need a time frame off, you go block it out. Just give me a heads up so I know, so I can make sure that there's enough people in the barbershop. Right. That's it. I'm not going to tell you no. I'm not, you know, and I think allowing certain control over that's it's super important. You know, it allows for the entire, you know, business, whatever business it may be, to just thrive and really like make people feel, not even make people feel, because they are involved. Like the people that work in my barbershop right now, my goal is if they want it, is to just keep coming. You just go through every door that I'm going to go through and you're coming with me, right? And again, I think people get that skewed where you're like, yo, I had these expectations for you. And because one of them is like, no, man, I want to like go do my own thing. Cool. And I'll help you do that. And by doing that, I guarantee they're not going to open up a barbershop down the street for me. No. You know, they're going to do their thing. I'm going to help them do their thing if that's what they want to do, or if they want to do something with me. Right. We'll do it. And of course, I'm sure there'll be some, you know, situations where it won't work out. Right. And I mean, that's just business,
that's human nature in business, for sure.
Exactly.
That's cool too, to just be able to change people's lives in that way. Like even just by being a cool, like, quote unquote boss. I mean, you know, and opening doors for people and giving them opportunity. So that's huge too.
Yeah, for sure.
So have the girls been exposed to the business and the barbershop and to the band?
Oh, yeah.
What if tomorrow,
child labor,
like,
man.
I was like, Dad, I'm in a band. I'm starting a band, or, you know, like,
that'd be
like
great.
If they want to follow in Dad's footsteps, you know, how do you feel
that'd be great. I mean, they're little performers in their own. They're doing like competitive dance and cheerleading and stuff.
That's amazing.
So cute.
But yeah, so me and my wife we're pretty big on like life, allowing you to learn lessons, like life lessons, teaching you things. I think that's more important than certain things you're going to learn in school. So for example, a few weeks ago, I had them come in on a Saturday and they did a lemonade stand outside of the barbershop.
That's so cute.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. They ended up, I was like, listen, you're going to take your money, your allowance money that you had, and you're going to buy everything. Obviously, I bought it, but you know, for them, I'm showing them. Okay,
they think they bought it.
They think
they bought it.
Sure. So it's like, it costs this amount of money. You're gonna have to sell X amount of cups of lemonade to make your money back, and then whatever you make after that is your profit, right? So they did all of that. They ended up making like $200.
Whoa,
which is crazy. But yeah, my clients were awesome. They were just giving them $20, you know, whatever. So at the end of it, I think it was like, I don't know, $150 that they had left over. I was like, all right. And my oldest one already knew. She's like, I'm only going to take 10%, right, Dad? Whatever that is. And that's the money we could spend on anything, right? Like, exactly. I was like, because this wasn't a one and done thing. It was like, you could do this all the time. So you're not gonna spend all of your money on whatever. You're gonna reinvest it back into your lemonade business. So
I'm gonna open up a lemonade stand outside the barber.
Seriously.
$200 a day, why not? So yeah, so they took 10%. We went to Target, they bought whatever they wanted. Yeah. And then they had, you know, whatever, $100 left over, and now they could have another lemonade stand and, you know, whatever it is.
Cool.
The point being is like, you know, showing them certain things. Like my kids they know a lot of different terms, value, like Reese calls it the V talk, like like the value of things. Yep. What money is, why it is important, why it isn't important, you know, and everything kind of in between, and understanding that you could do things in your life to buy your freedom from things you don't want to do. Right. And by doing those certain things and understanding how to get there is super important.
Absolutely.
You know?
I appreciate that about, I think, our generation. Like, I didn't grow up in a household where that was an emphasis, or my parents were talking to me about money or investing or running a business. Like,
of course
maybe
not,
you guys either.
God,
you
no.
know, and it's just beautiful that, like, I feel like our generation is a little more focused on, like, providing those opportunities for our children. You know, like you don't just necessarily get a corporate job and sit there for 50 years and, you know, grind it out for somebody else. Like you can be in control of your own destiny.
Exactly.
And here I'm going to help give you the tools.
Exactly. And it makes...
And in a fun way. Like they probably had a blast doing it.
Oh, yeah. Cool. It was awesome. And then that's also the point of it too, is that like you could do something and make money and love it.
Right.
So let's figure out what that is. And I'm not like going to be hell-bent on my kids going to college if that's not their...
Same.
If that's not what they need to do, you know, whatever it is, we're going to be focused on it and get it done for them. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things, I think, with our generation and the generation coming that is disrupt. Like I just love disrupting things, right? Because you just look at like, whoa, everybody's doing this, and they're only doing this because one or a few people in the beginning thought it was a good idea, and then they just are following, right? There's always better ways or different ways to do something, right? So I think that is happening with like our generation and the generation coming up, where it's disrupting what, you know, work is, or what the status quo of like your ambitions are. Okay, you have to get good grades, you have to go to high school, go to college, get a good job. Now you're $200,000 in student loan debt, and you're, you know, say you got a good job in finance. Now you live here and you're going to JP Morgan in the city 5 days a week, and you're making $100,000 and hate your life, right? Like there's so many other ways to do it. And in school, I'm not, you know, against school obviously, but you know, your traditional way of learning, there's a reason why these things aren't taught, is because the world has to work, you know? So if you give certain goals and ambitions and ideas to too many people,
we're not going to have anyone do this stupid stuff.
Exactly.
Oh, your ambitions are too high. Let's
exactly. Like you're crazy. You're crazy. And the funny thing is, I tell this to my kids, I tell this to a lot of people. Like the only people that tell you you're crazy are people that won't do it.
Oh yeah.
I was like, never,
1000%.
ever have I been in a room with somebody who's as successful or way more successful than me, and I'm telling them an idea I have. They're like, dude, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I see it. I wouldn't do it, but I see it.
Right.
100% of the time, somebody that has no ambition or scared or is jealous is like, you're out of your mind. That's not going to work.
That's so crazy, right?
That's
it's
so
not going to work, right?
Exactly. It's like, okay, cool. You know, I think that's, it's funny, but it's the same idea where I remember when I was younger, I got married. My best friend's older brother, he was like 50 at the time. Never married.
That sounds
like,
weird.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have to explain that he's just.
Oh,
he's just.
Yeah. Sorry. Right. I just.
Oh my god.
I was 20. My older.
You were 20 and a 50-year-old was telling me.
Right. He was telling me. I was about to get married. He was telling me how crazy I was to get married and settle down and all of these things. And like in my head, I thought he was like married at some point. And I realized I was like, oh, he's never been married. He's only been burnt by people, and he's alone.
Right.
So why am I taking advice from this guy?
You live in his mom's basement. It's like, Mom, more meatloaf.
Exactly. You know, so right. The point of that is you got to look at where it's all coming from. You know?
100%. Yeah. That's like when I'm leaving corporate to come sell real estate. Like, you're crazy.
Right.
I guess. Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm the
don't
happiest
worry about
I've been professionally. Like,
exactly.
Right. You have to follow your dreams.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Because it is. And when it comes down to the money, it's not all about the number, right?
Nope.
Because you could figure out anything to make it work, right? If you have 2 kids and you're looking at whatever the scope of your finances are, and you're like, all right, let's tighten the belt. You know why? Because mom and dad are both happy at whatever they do to earn money, and that's it. Rather than, I know people, again, like JP Morgan, all these like really intense jobs coming from, you know, Jersey Shore to New York every day, leaving at 4 a.m.
Getting home at 7.
Yeah, 7, 8, you know,
That's terrible.
3 hours and travel each way or whatever it may be to make enough money to what? To like
To work, essentially.
to impress usually people you don't like or don't know.
Yep.
That's what like the definition of keeping up with the Joneses is, right?
Yep.
You're trying to impress people you don't know or don't like. For what?
It's insanity.
It's insanity. To me, that's crazy. Not following some sort of ambition, you know?
Right. Agreed.
Wow.
Well, on that note, follow your dreams. We have a pure example of that right here. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on today. We really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
And we want to definitely come out to Arizona or like whatever
Yeah,
you
I
have
like
going
this
on. Invite
idea.
us, please. I'll get a babysitter.
Awesome. Do you golf? It's a golf
I can
event, too.
golf.
Yeah.
I
It'll be fun.
want to drive a golf
Yeah.
cart and drink beer, so
right.
I will be there.
Sweet.
I'll put you in charge of that thing.
Okay. Awesome. Done
All
deal.
right.
Thank you guys for listening today, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.